what we want to talk about today is around brand transformation. And we're in a unique spot that you guys are both going through work together through brand transformation. And so, I first want to start, maybe you can do just a little bit of background to set the context for ETS, and then how you got introduced to Treff.
How I got introduced to Treff? I don't know. Can we tell that story?
I don't think so.
I don't think we can tell that story. It's off the record.
All right.
Sure. So I can introduce myself first, and then I'll let you introduce. So I'm Michelle Froah. I'm the Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer at ETS. And ETS is a talent and education and talent solutions organization. And we're really aiming to provide lifelong learners ways to help progress their skills and their proficiency in many ways. So that's been fun. However, it is a historically huge reputation company, strong reputation, but mainly in educational testing. And we wanted to transform that, which we'll talk about later. And Code and Theory and Treff and Brent, I was going to say he's out there on the high Brent, and their teams have helped us to do that. So we have a great story to tell.
And ETS is no small organization. I mean, you're in almost 200 countries.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Yeah, it's a big organization. We help 50 million learners every year, and we're about in 200 countries around the world.
So, do you want to do a quick intro? Yeah.
Hey, thanks. Hey, I'm Mike Treff. I'm the CEO of Code and Theory. Code and Theory is a technology-first creative agency. We do lots of the work like we're talking about today. I will say the origin story, if I may, what was so exciting about the challenge Michelle and ETS had is exactly what you're talking about. It's a huge company with a lot of equities and a lot of ground covered in what you do, and in a category that's like significantly changing and needed something bold to go forward. And I mean, that certainly is the kind of brief that is very exciting to work on, because to the point of the talk of the name of the panel, it wasn't just hey, let's change the logo and the colors and make it look nice. That's not the brief. The brief is to really take a look at where the business is, where it needs to go, and how to then build not only a brand, but then all the experiences around that to help bring that to life.
Yeah. Can you share, Michelle, just a little bit more of the shifts that were happening through education, through even testing, through these lifelong learners, and kind of what was happening? It was the impetus to make this move, to make this jump.
Well, I think there's a lot of shifts that are happening in the world. Some of which, are all industries are facing, right? Even with AI, there's a lot of shifts that are happening for the future of jobs, for the future of work. In fact, I was here earlier for South by Southwest EDU. Did you guys even know there was an EDU track? I know, right? It's pretty cool. Guess what they were all talking about? AI. Shocker.
Yeah.
AI in education. They were also talking about skills. And I think that's the thing that really all of us are facing on these trends in the future, or for the future. So they had a big focus on learning and teaching, obviously, being in an EDU, but they also had a focus on the future of work. And what kind of work is there going to be in the future, and what are we training and preparing our children, to do in that future? So we actually did. So we've seen this, just being across education and the whole field. We've seen these trends happening and shifting what people feel like they need to be prepared for in the future. We recently did a study. It's a big study across the globe, 17 countries, 17,000 participants. And there were a couple surprising facts that came out of that study. One was that 8 out of 10 global people in the world thought that they needed to be a lifelong learner in order to be more prosperous in the future. Like it doesn't stop after school, right? And it
Right.
doesn't. You have to continue to learn and develop. The other one was that the majority of people, I think it was around over 80%, felt like skills and micro credentials and licenses, things like that, are going to be more beneficial than a college degree by
Right.
2035. And so that was a surprising number. And that's not coming from educators or employers, that's coming from people really feeling that shift already. And so, that that, amongst a whole lot of other things, have caused us to really look at our mission and say, how can we provide more value, not just in the educational testing space, but really in the future readiness space of helping people thrive and adapt to that ever changing world.
Yeah.
If I could just say, what's so interesting about what you just said is there's like a duality in it in some ways. People acknowledging that change is going to be a constant in our future of learning and in our life, and the need to continually educate, learn new, learn more is going to be so critical. And concurrently, hard measurable accredited skills are also super important. So it's like both ends of the spectrum are experiencing a disruption.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's definitely a disruption.
Right. Yeah. So I know like the unique spot you're both in is we're a month away from launching your new brand transformation, right? Which isn't a logo redesign. Maybe you can talk a little bit about, not to give away what the launch is, but also just talk about how does brand transformation serve the business transformation? Because you can't necessarily, or maybe you can, do them separately.
Or in what order, right?
Right.
I mean, so I can start with that. I think to build off what Treff just said, a brand is not a logo in itself. And I know I'm speaking to the choir of excellent marketers out there that you all agree. But in order to build a compelling brand, what you really need to do is think about the internal structure of what you're trying to achieve from a business standpoint, and then how you present yourself externally and what that presence is externally to represent yourself. And so for me, I think you have to start with the business transformation that's needed in order to get to what kind of future forward brand do you need to bring that strategic vision really to life.
Right.
And that's how we approached it at ETS.
Yeah.
I mean, we spent a lot of time figuring out what the business transformation was going to be before we even started anything on the brand transformation.
Yep.
Yeah, and you certainly, we get it all the time at an agency. You get briefs in all the time. The briefs that come in that are, hey, we need a new logo, just redesign something, make it look nice.
Make it viral.
Yeah, make it viral. Obviously, they'll be social. Everyone will care. There'll be tons of earned media. That's sarcasm. Those briefs are fun if you just want a design exercise, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not really going to do much to move a business, especially a business going through a transformation, because either the category has changed significantly, or it's a very legacy institution that is going through modernization. Perhaps the product and service mix changes. Perhaps the customers change. The end customers, the end users change. So when you're approaching a project like this, and again, we get briefs on all sides of this, the ones that really last, the ones that really drive impact, it is impossible to decouple the business transformation from the brand transformation. It is impossible to build a brand and to bring into the world without taking a look at what the business is trying to accomplish. Does the product and service mix align to that? How are we communicating it? What's the priority? What are we saying to whom? Because also today, in the world of AI, content can be very ephemeral. Messaging can be very ephemeral, and you can be more personal than you've ever had the ability to be. Like, we do a lot of web work, a lot of software work. We used to have these fantasy ideas about how we could do specific marketing for one person to one person to one person, and it was kind of fantasy, but it's not really fantasy anymore, as everyone knows in this room. So when you think about what it means to then bring that new business and brand vision to the market, you have to be more flexible in how you look at it, which means it has to be a system, which means it's so much more than just identity.
Right. So how do you design, like as you go through this process together, and in the age of AI, how does that shape the process? And what maybe are some of the key learnings as you've gone through it together? Because it can be hyper personalized.
Well, I would say, boy, there's so many key learnings going through a process
We'll just
like
go one by
this.
one.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll
not
start,
even.
start at the top.
I'm going to put AI to the side for a minute because at the end of the day, when you are transforming your brand, you are trying to connect with humans,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in order to do that, you actually need to speak and talk with humans. So that was the crux of the key learning and the process that we used. I think one is this is an iterative process. It's not like you buy the first thing that comes across on either side, right? There's so many different angles that you can go down, and there's so many stakeholders. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just obviously customer. You have to be customer obsessed and always think about the customer first.
Right.
But there are business partners. There's functional partners. There's external partners. I mean, there's all of these folks that you have to iterate and engage along the way. Otherwise, no one's going to buy it at the end and want to be a brand ambassador. So I think that's one key learning that has, definitely been rooted true in any brand transformation I've done. And then I think the other one is actually do get customer feedback. As much as we would like to think that we are the customer, we're probably not, and our teams are probably not.
Yeah.
And so you got to keep in mind that you're not designing it for you. You're designing it for your true customers. So, I mean, those are a couple big ones.
No, those are huge. Credit where it's due. I also think you need to have a really collaborative, involved client, which luckily we do, and you have to develop trust and transparency with our clients that we can speak
We
freely,
definitely have that.
speak honestly, sometimes over beers, and that's okay.
Is that what I walked in earlier on?
Yeah. But I do think going back to
That's
your
vodka.
going back to your first point, I think this is like a huge learning for anyone in here who might be going through something like this. The change management and socialization piece of making this successful is as important as the work itself. Like full stop. Especially in a matrix organization, especially in an organization with multiple layers of customers and lots of partners. We do lots of this type of work, and the ones that are successful in complex organizations are because time and care was put into bringing everybody along, giving people the right materials, ensuring alignment so anyone talking about it is on sort of aligned on what the purpose and intent was, so they can then bring it to life. Because ultimately, to your point about humans, if you don't get the humans aligned on what everyone is doing, internal, within the organization, with partners and with customers, it's very hard to bring something to life.
I think another, I mean, it's a slight iteration of what we've both just said, but co-creation, I think, is just such a needed approach in any process like this. And I don't mean just co-creation between, client and agency, which it has to be. I mean, we had some fantastic all-day work sessions, where we were
Right.
definitely co-creating. But also with your business partners and your functional partners, and bringing them in. I mean, frankly, when we were going through the strategy part of brand and thinking even about our positioning and what's our new category and who are the new competitors that we should be thinking about, guess who were like our biggest advocates of this work? It was like our CFO, our CEO, our business partners, because we were thinking about bringing brand value in a new space. And those guys, they love that conversation, you know what I mean? And it was a real co-creation of effort.
100%.
I want to double click on the impact, both personally and professionally. I mean, you're working on a subject that's going to impact, I mean, from young to old, like your entire life, like education. This has to have both like a personal meaning and also a professional meaning. I wonder if you could talk about that and how that plays into what's yet to be launched.
That's a great question, because and I'm sure Treff is going to say something similar. But we've been in this business for a while. I'm not going to lie, right? And so I've happened to have had the privilege of rebranding a lot of brands. And rethinking about how we present ourselves to the world, and those brands have been very purposeful. I worked at P&G for 18 years. Customer
Hey.
is boss. I know, Cincinnati, go Reds. And so I grew up knowing that customer is boss, and
Right.
that you have to have purpose in your brands. But I feel like this is almost like at a different level.
Yeah.
This
has to be.
is
Has
this
to
is where ETS is a nonprofit. I've never worked at a nonprofit before. It has a mission, which is to me almost a little higher order than a purpose. And that mission, really, and our brand promise really is about advancing the science of measurement to power human progress.
Right.
And when I stop and take a think about that, I'm like, wow, that's actually really impactful.
Yeah. Very different than selling soap.
It is a little different, yeah. And I worked on beautiful brands like CoverGirl and Kotex when I was at Kimberly Clark, and they do have a purpose, and you feel that purpose internally. But this is like such a wider impact across the world to do a couple of things. I would say we have some really important outcomes that we're trying to accomplish. One is promote skill proficiency. So skills are going to be the new currency, right?
Yeah.
And helping people develop and give them insights about the progress they're making towards developing those skills is really important. Another is increasing mobility, upward mobility, and that could be across so many dimensions: social, economic, even global dimensions. And then the last is really unlocking opportunities for all. And that's really important to us, to be able to help all people everywhere, be able to do what they want.
I mean, it's 1,000% everything you said. And I'll just come at it from a different angle, which is if you're, at an agency and you get the opportunity to work on something as aspirational and as really human impacting as what you're talking about, like, how are you not excited about that? And how do you
That's
not
right.
get passionate about that? I mean, for those of us, we got into this industry to make things. We got into this industry to do good, hopefully, generally. And, it's very rare that you get that kind of combination of like a very purpose-driven, mission-driven, real impact, global scale opportunity to flex your creative and your strategic chops on. And so you got to take those opportunities with real rigor.
There's some unique timing. I mean, obviously with AI disrupting everything, but also just companies, the shape of the organization in companies is shifting as well, where they're located from remote work, but also just kind of a downsizing on teams and how do you restart your career. I mean, you're coming out of this at a very unique time, I think, where education and just continuous learning really is impactful.
And I think it's also important for us to think about how we utilize AI towards that mission and towards that effort, right? And so, we have really talented people at ETS, and I'm privileged to have not only the marketing team but the innovation team, and we have a lot of AI engineers and folks that are looking at the impact and how we infuse our products and services with AI in order to help humans, right? So a really cool example that I always love to share is a free app actually out on the App Store. So go download it. Now, actually, there's 2 free apps, as part of our being mission-based.
Go on.
Yes.
Right.
One is called Authentic, and it is all for folks who are looking to interview for a new job. So uses AI, generative AI. If you type in, I'm looking for this level, this type of job or career, It'll generate typical questions that you might get asked in that interview.
Cool.
Then it uses multimodal AI to record your answers, right, as you pretend that you're having this interview. And it gives you insights back. And it'll give you insights about the quality of your answer, your rate of speech, your eye contact, how clear were you, all of these different applications and insights, I should say, to help you become more proficient in that skill. Similarly, there's another app called Converse, and it'll do the same. It uses the same sort of multimodal AI, but it'll do that for workplace conversations. So where you're trying to improve your clarity of communication or your collaboration or things like that, it'll help you do that.
Do they have one for moderators?
Ooh.
That'd be good. Yeah.
I think we can build one.
All right.
I just want to say those are like perfect examples of when you think about the changing business, why it's impossible to decouple to the title of what we're talking about here today. Like, those are very different things for ETS to be doing than historically what ETS had done. It didn't sit, those type of products and innovations didn't sit neatly in legacy architecture of what it was. And so that's a perfect example. And I guess the only other point I would make on it is there's going to continue to be that sort of change, that rate of change in the category, in the business, in people's lives, in how people learn, in the skills they're going to need to learn. Like, what people are learning, we were just at a thing this morning at a school, like what people are learning and how they're learning today, and we're talking like, K through 12, is can be so fundamentally different than what it was previously. So in the spirit, making change your offense as opposed to something you're shying away from, kind of sits squarely in if you're going to do a transformation.
Yeah.
You have to think about that. What are the things that are going to change? How do I plan for change? How do I make that and be at the front of that change as opposed to like reactive and try to retro it into something that pre-existed?
Yep. So what was one of the biggest surprises as you were going through this process?
How complex ETS is?
Yes, actually, it's one of my surprises too.
We all found that out together.
Yes, we did.
Well, when did you start this?
I'm not even quite a year yet at ETS,
Okay.
so we're relaunching the business and the brand within a year. That's pretty good. But we started our partnership late July last year.
Yeah.
And, I have to say, this is a very fast process. I mean, I don't think I've rebuilt a business and a brand in that short a time.
We have clients doing far less aggressive work in quadruple the timeline.
Yeah. I think you had a quote, though. You did that. You would rather do it
totally
on that pace, right?
No, on this pace.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
100%. Sometimes time is your enemy.
Yeah, exactly. So we had to get real clear, real fast, and I do think that when you have some urgency, you create less analysis paralysis, right? I mean, you have people focused on what kind of business do we want to be. And to Treff's point, we're a very complex business because we do serve so many audiences.
Yeah.
We have a huge research group, and their audience really is other researchers, philanthropists, investors that might want to contribute to the research that we put out in the world to try and help build those benchmarks.
Yeah.
We have B2B audiences, from governments to employers to credentialing agencies that are looking for ways to assess not just the cognitive abilities of their contingents, but also the non-cognitive, these durable skills.
Right.
And then we have individuals, like international students that want to take the TOEFL test, or teachers with the Praxis assessment, etc. So lots of different audiences with one brand, but with a broad portfolio of services.
Yeah. So for, I guess, people who are listening along and embarking on their own, kind of the start of that journey, any advice that you would give them as they're getting started? You got to go into the microphone, Treff.
Am I not?
Open the mic night at Chili's. That's what we're doing.
Do you want me to do like a four bar flow on this one?
Hey, whatever you're feeling.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we touched on a lot of it. Like, I do think it's really important. It's really, really important to, if you're going to do work like this, to be honest about the scope of the work in terms of how deep you have to go, getting under the guts of the business, getting into the organization. The change management and socialization piece is huge. Again, of the failure, everyone's failed at a brand transformation once or twice in their career, if not more. Like, when it fails, it usually fails because of that piece, the socialization and change management piece of it. And also, the other piece of advice I would give is to just find the things that are true in your business, in your value propositions, in your portfolio, in your communications, in your people, and amplify those. And a lot of people don't do that. They come up with all kinds of architectures and messaging that they try to wedge into truth. Start with what's true, or the ambition of where you want it to go, and then move outward from that. That's awesome. Would be my advice.
Cool. I know we only have a few more minutes. Just want to open it up if anybody had any thoughts or questions. Or Treff's going to flow.
Nobody wants that.
They might want it.
Literally no one.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
Brent, you got a question, Brent?
Yeah.
I was taking pictures.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thanks everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.